Hi and welcome back. As I announced, today I'm going to start my playthrough or my real first playthrough session of Bora Bora. I think or I hope you have watched my first episode where I explained some of the components, showed you the starting setup of the game and so on. So you should be familiar with some of the rules, but if you haven't watched it, that's also not a problem. At least during the first turns, definitely I will explain every action I will do here on the board. So I think you can learn the rules as I go. So red will be the starting player, and this first turn, or this first turn we'll call that. So we would roll the dice for him, but we will also roll the dice for the green player. So this will be done simultaneously because this gives you a little bit of an opportunity to see where you would place your action die and so on, and to see okay which number could he roll, where is he higher and so on. So this definitely brings some strategic element to the game to see what dice your opponent has rolled. Here's quickly the player board for the green player as well. You have to apologize, as I'm not an expert in this game, I have to admit that. So I only have that for some days now. I test or gave it some test runs. So I can teach you how to play it in respect to the rules, but I'm definitely not a master here. So basically I don't have a clue how the mechanics actually work out, and I don't want to give you any strategic decisions. I will try to explain each action, why I believe this could be meaningful to do so or could make sense, but I don't claim that this is really true what I will decide in my playthrough here. Okay, let's get over to the my dice board, and yeah, let's roll for the action dice. So as mentioned, we will roll all the dice simultaneously. So here's green, here's red. You can already see that green might have a little bit of a benefit because he rolled a little bit higher, but still red is the starting player, so whenever he would place an action here on some of the die on some of the actions here, for example this 4, then on this action the green player could only put, for example, the die with a lower value. In this case, this is very limited for the green player to go for an appropriate action. So for his first action, the red player will go for this expand action here. So in this action card, in this 2 or 3 player game, there is a combined one. So you can go for through the sea basically, or through normal land path here basically. And the red player will take this route here, and that's because for once he can go for this relatively high amount of fishing ground here. So I explain that in a second. Secondly, he would be allowed to draw 1 stone from the general resource, which he would place here on this board. And additionally, he places his red god here. Of course, he has to pay an offering for that, so this goes back to the bank. And this allows him now to activate the fishing grounds here. And remember, he can only do that really when doing the expand action directly here in this area. So this would give him instantly 5 victory points. So that would put him here to 5 victory points. Another reason why I went there is because he has this task tile here, and this he can fulfill this task tile when he has placed huts beside these special fish types. So remember, this is not any fish type. This really means you have to go to the same fish type, and that's why I went in that direction. And so at least he can more or less fulfill that at least once. Okay, let's head over to the green player, who will or who cannot place or do an expand action in this turn, at least not without spending one of his god cards here. But I think he will try to play it simple because this is a relatively easy task tile here. So I think he will use his woman action to grab a woman in this, or a woman in this case, from the general offering. So I think he will use his 4 die here, and now he could go for a of course I have not to place it here, I will place it on the appropriate action board. So he can now go for this tile here or here. Of course we want to have a woman tile here, so we will take that one because this could give us in the helper action 4 shells basically. So let's place her on the player board accordingly, and of course we will place the die appropriately on the action tile itself. Okay, this was already the turn of the green player, so let's get over again to the red player once more. Okay, red will go for an helper action because he really has some tough task tiles which are very hard to achieve, I have to admit. So he will try to go for this very first task tile, this one here, because this says you need to have 3 god cards of the same color. So with this 4 he placed on the helper action, he can trade in to draw 2 of those tiles later on, 2 of those god cards, and there are 2 greens available, so I think he will really go for these 2 green god cards. Of course they are replaced immediately. Always 5 god cards in play. This is the discard pile here. So he takes those god cards into his hand. Unfortunately there haven't been drawn any additional green god cards, so I think he will not make it to fulfill one of his task tiles at this point in time or during the first round of the game. I think green will play it safe this time and will place this die in the temple, so performing a temple action, and though he can put one of his priests on the appropriate spot, remember here as well he could also go for lower values, but I think in the temple it should be fine to go as high as possible. This now allows him to perform this or to gain this fire bonus, and I think he will go for his first bonus. He would draw a card, a god card, so you can either go for a card, god card, or an offering. In this case we take the red god, and additionally we can advance the status track 1, so we will move 1 space ahead on the status track, and therefore we gain 1 victory point. But this victory point is scored at the end basically of this round, so in the phase C when resolving the game round here. So the red player is using his last die to go for a man or woman action, and with a 1 he's only allowed to go for either this or that tile here, so I think he really needs to have some shells, so I think he would go for the woman tile down here, which will be placed on his player board and can be activated in a later phase of the game. Green really wants to go for this helper action, and he does that. So he places his 5 die here. Of course that's not possible without any divine help basically, so he's playing his blue god here, so this allows him then to use or can place die that's higher or even that's equal to the lowest die that's on this action tile, and of course he has to pay his offering to the god to do the proper worshipping and so on, and now he would be allowed to use this 5 die on the helper action. So with his first action in the helper action he counts that down to 4. You see this is only 1-to-1 die point, and therefore he will go for some shell or shell collection basically. So that's put her down here, so she is activated, so she cannot go for any more shells in this game. This is more or less done, but at least the green player gains 4 of these shells here, and with that he can later on go some shopping for some nice little jewelry. With 2 of his die points, so put it down at 2, he will go to buy some sand here, so this costs him 2 of these action die rolls, so he has now also something he could use in a later turn to actually build something. And I think with the last 2 points he will go for some stone here as well. So he is now pretty relaxed in respect to building on his ceremony space here, and I think during the next turn he can go for some building. So both players have placed their action dice, so phase A is done. Now we come to phase B, where you can now activate basically a kind of a woman tile and a man tile. For red it's pretty simple. He has only 1 woman, or at least only 1 inhabitant basically in his village here, and then now the right side of these tiles here count, and there it really doesn't matter if they have been activated already or not. The right side can always be activated in phase B of each game round. So now he would gain 1 of these offering tokens back, and this concludes now the turn of phase B for the red player. Remember, if you would have a man tile here as well, he could activate that as well. And also, if he would have, for example, another woman tile with this offering, then he could have basically accumulated both of these tiles. So in this case, he would then have gotten 2 of these offering tokens. For green, it's also relatively simple. There's only 1 woman on or in his village, and this woman now provides him with 2 victory points. So 1 and 2, they're both coming a little bit closer to each other, but I think we are very early stage of the game. This was phase B of the round. Now we come to phase C, and phase C consists of 4 of these steps. First would be to resolve the status track. So for once each player gains the amount of victory points that is shown on his status marker here. So in this case only the green player scores 1 victory point. That's 1 here, and then all the status markers will be brought back to the number 0 basically, but the player who had his status marker basically to the farthest, or was farthest ahead, will be on top and thus be the starting player from now on. Now we have to resolve the temple here, and in the first 2 rounds, you see that here, so round 1, round 2, each player which has a priest in the temple gains 1 victory points for that. Though in this case only the green player has a priest in his temple, so he gains an additional victory point. So that's also 5. So they are even at this point in time. And last but not least, in the temple action, the player with most of the priests in the temple gains 1 of these god tiles here. In this case there is only 1 player in the temple, so green will gain another god tile. So let's place that here as well on his player board. Remember, for once the god tiles score victory points by the end of the game if you have not used them, but you can also use those as wildcards. So next will be the jewelry offering, and you can only buy jewelry that's in the current round, in this case from any of those 4. And as I know that the red player needs those jewelry, I will buy 1 of those jewelry with 1 shell. It's also pretty cheap, so I will take this to my player board here, and there's also a nice space for that. So, and the rules say to put them face down on your player board. Theoretically, now red could go for some jewelry shopping, but he does not have any shells in his possession. You may wonder why green chose first, because from now on, as in phase 1, green is the starting player, and this then already counts for the remains of the phase C. So he's no longer the starting player. That's why the status track is resolved first in this phase C. Now we come to the final step in this phase C, and this is to fulfill or complete your task tiles. And again, green can go first, and green can fulfill this task tile easily. So he has a woman on his player board. So let me show that to you. Oops, no, I have to scroll up a little bit. So here's his woman, and you might remember that he also has a priest in the temple. So for this task tile, he can bring that here on this side of the completed task tile. This will gain him instantly 6 additional victory points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now red could also try to fulfill or complete one of his victory tiles. And red cannot do that without any divine help here, I'm afraid. But that's not really a problem. So he will go for this task tile here, which says you have to have 3 of the same god cards. He has 2 of these green ones, but he could use his yellow god here. And this yellow god says, okay, hey, you can complete one task tile for 1 resource less than really needed. So in this case, the task tile shows 3 cards of a kind. He only has 2, so with this god here, he can fulfill that. Of course, he needs to pay an offering to that, so this god is now vanished. And as well, he does not gain the full 6 victory points for this task tile, but has only 4, so this is shown here. So he gains at least 4 victory points. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then each player can go for a additional task tile, really only 1. So I think green, still being the starting player, will go for this task tile here because he already has 1 priest in the temple. So let's place the new tile on this free spot here. And I think red might try to go for this one because he has already 1 village that's close to one of these fish types. So yes, let's take this and also put it on the free space over here. Just to show you, this is the fish tile or the fishing ground that he just got his task tile for. Okay, this were basically all the 3 phases in the first round of Bora Bora. Now we have to do some cleanup to prepare the second round. So first let's discard the jewelry that has not been bought for this round, so they cannot be purchased any longer. Then we discard the task tile that no one has chosen, and let's restock those. So this is now something greenish. I have to check that, to be honest. Oh, this is tough. So you have to build 4 times a hut in your ceremony space, and these are, I think, should be 2 jewelry of that kind, yes. And as a last cleanup action, we will discard the remaining man and woman tiles and replace those with new from the reserve. So there are always 6 men and women on the board. So let's quickly do that for the women as well. I really like the graphics. They look very nice. That's really good job. So finally, some other tiles in this case. So bring some new elements to the game. And this was more or less the cleanup phase. One thing that's left to do, which I forgot, and this is to replace the first player marker with basically between the 2 players, so green being now the first player. So this was the first round of Bora Bora. I hope some of the rules have become clearer a little bit this point in time. As mentioned, I don't have any strategic tips for you, so I don't have a clue how to play this game in respect to strategy or tactics. But still, hopefully some of my moves made sense to you. If I made some very bad mistake, please let me know. Tell me maybe where I could play better. So if you have any tips for the red player or the green player, please let me know, either below the video on YouTube or on my Facebook page. Please feel free to reach out to me and let me know what I could do better for in respect to actual gameplay. And yeah, hope to see you soon in the next round of Bora Bora. And yeah, until then, bye bye.